Chicago's violence problem is directly linked to the number of illegal guns, the majority of which come from states with weak gun laws. 60% of guns found in Chicago crime scenes are trafficked into the city from other states.
Over the past 4 years, more than 1,000 firearms seized in Chicago came from Mississippi.
695 guns found in Chicago crime scenes were originally sold in Wisconsin.
In 6 years, 3,824 guns that were used in crimes which came from our next-door neighbor, Indiana.
That is a scene from the new movie Making a Killing, Guns, Greed, and the NRA. It is a look at America's gun culture, the people and the organizations that are making billions off of it, and how its impact is impacting millions of Americans on a daily basis, and not in a good way. My next guest, he is the director and producer of the film, Robert Greenwald. Robert, thanks for the time.
My pleasure.
Clearly, when you see the film, you walk away, I think, with a clear idea that the NRA, I think when people hear the acronym, they think, hey, this is an advocate here for Second Amendment rights, and that's what they, but really more than that, they're a show for the gun manufacturers, and really, clearly as it's through this, their main job seems to be they want to sell as many guns as possible for their biggest donors.
That's exactly right, and that's absolutely the reason we did the film, was to connect the dots and to take some of the great research that has been done by other journalists, by think tanks, by academic studies, and say, here is the evidence. And we tie that evidence to the very personal, painful stories of people who've had horrific deaths and losses. And the reason behind it is this toxic mixture, profit, greed, and ideology.
I want to play another clip from the film, and everybody hears about the gun show loophole. They hear the words, but this next clip shows just how easy it is to get a gun at one of these shows.
I was just staring at him, and he just stared right back at me, and that look in his eyes, it was like, you're dead.
We got a restraining order, and they came and took the guns the next day.
Even though the police now had his guns, they warned us that he could go get a gun easily from a private sale. A gun show or obtain a gun the very next day.
The private vendors do not need to put the buyer through a background check.
Were you even surprised at how many gun shows there are in this country, let alone how easy it is to walk out of there with a gun with little if no background check?
Yeah, I was very surprised. And this is where film can be so powerful. I mean, I heard some of the numbers and talk about gun shows, but the idea that thousands of these all over the country, and I went to one, people pouring into them, buying guns freely and easily with virtually no restrictions in many cases. It was eye-opening and it was shocking. And what became sort of this language, gun show loophole, suddenly became personal and specific and visual for us and for everyone working on the film, and I believe for the audience also.
And that dovetails into, obviously, the human toll. People hear the numbers, but I thought that there was one clip that we'll share with our audience now from the eyes of a nurse as to what they see as the consequences of this. Let's take a look.
In my hospital, 54 kids got shot last year, and they trickled through the news one at a time and then faded out of people's public conscious. Where is that outcry for these kids, right? It's not happening all at once. It's this chronic, steady stream of violence in their lives. And to think about those numbers in those terms, if you shift the way people think about it, maybe they'll get more mad about it. They all know someone who was shot. They all love someone in their family who was shot, or they've personally been shot. What does that do to a community?
What did you find in putting this together, obviously with a lot of different date lines across this country, in terms of the areas that see the most amount of gun violence? Because it's not just obviously the numbers and the broken families. It has more of a cumulative impact, right?
It does. And of course, any death, I mean, imagine one death in your family, what that does to you. As the doctor we saw just speaking says, in a community like on the south side of Chicago, it literally has destroyed a community. You know, I've been to Afghanistan and interviewed people there during the war. I've been to Pakistan and interviewed drone survivors. There was something so profoundly upsetting in being on the south side of Chicago, where literally every single person I talked to had very close firsthand experience about deaths due to guns. Now, you take away the guns, and it's a completely, totally different situation. So there are individual painful stories underlying it being greed and profit, NRA and gun companies. And then there's the south side of Chicago, which is an entire community being attacked and decimated by guns through gun stores and gun shows and gun trafficking and money, money, and money. And it's one of the many reasons I'm so thrilled that the film is available completely for free at makingakilling.com. So people can go to makingakilling.com, sign up, have a screening, and there's no cost, and you can bring people together. And we're going to have 1,000 screenings by Labor Day. Churches, schools, universities, medical buildings, union halls, bowling alleys, restaurants, homes, you name it, and people are screening it. And this is the way we will create the change that's necessary, frankly, for all of our health and public safety.
And I only got a minute, Robert. People can debate this and come at it from their own positions as to the limits that we should or shouldn't have on guns. But there is a distorted fact that gets out there that this argument that, hey, you can have all the laws you want, doesn't really make any difference. In New York alone, it's actually made a material difference. When there are laws in the books, you actually see, if they're fully implemented, the gun violence goes down.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's such a nonsensical argument. What, we should do away with all laws because there are some lawbreakers? What you do is you strengthen the laws when there are lawbreakers. You don't throw your hands up and say, oh, some people are breaking the laws, let's forget about it. And that's what's encouraging. That's what's happening on the state level. And that's where we hope the film and programs like yours will help us spread the word about makingakilling.com so people can do something. They don't have to feel helpless and scared. They can take action, use the film, have a screening.
Well, I encourage our audience to check it out, and I certainly appreciate the time, Robert. Best of luck.
Thank you very much.
All right, everybody, straight ahead, Incarceration Nation, how America leads the world in one dubious statistic, the number of people behind bars. We're going to discuss the damage that causes with the author of a new book on the very subject.